Okay, now that the prep process is done, let's have some fun and put, that rhymes, I don't want to do that. Hey guys, if you're new here, this is the studio channel where we take a very deep dive into the nerdy aspects of detailing. So it's really the details of detailing and how we can kind of ratchet up our game like 10%. Today we're going to be working on an Audi S8. This is a customer car. Dominic, you know who he is. He's got tons of Ferraris, but we need to apply a coating to this. And I want to go over the step-by-step process for professionally applying a coating. So like everything else, I have an analogy. So you go to a fancy restaurant, you got a really good chef. He makes a fantastic meal. You sit down, you eat, you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever had. I want the recipe so I can do it at home. You do it at home and you're like, this is good, but it's missing this special sauce. Today, we're gonna be talking about that special sauce with respect to applying a coating. And that, I'll jump to the punchline here, it's about prepping the car properly. If you prep the paint properly, you can get extra longevity out of the coating. You can have it look better, easy on, easy off. So I'm gonna go through all of that and we're gonna break out the whiteboard and I'll show you exactly what I'm gonna do on a real customer car. So we're gonna be going over all that today on this episode of Drive and Protect. Step one, of course, is to wash the car, but I do want to change our mindset a little bit. We're not going to spend 3 hours doing that process. I think of it like going to a high-end spa. We're going to get a facial. They make you take a hot shower beforehand just to remove the grease and the grime so that the technicians can go in there and do whatever they're going to do to your skin. That's kind of what's happening here. It's really part one of 3 steps to prep the car. So to do that, I'm going to be using AMMO foam and AMMO boost here, putting them in the foam gun. Now, if you don't have a foam gun, that's totally fine. You can do this with a regular hose and a bucket, but what we are going to do is rinse everything first, then we're going to foam everything down and just let it do its work. Of course, we're inside. If you're outside in the sun, you're going to have to work a little faster, but let the paint just kind of soak for a while, and then I focus on the wheels. And these in particular are very, very dirty, big, heavy car, Audi brakes, etc. So I'm going to go in there with Plum, the wheel woolly, work the back of the rims. Why? Because we're putting a coating on the paint, and we're going to be putting a coating on the wheels in this episode. So I need to clean them properly. So I do one wheel at a time, and then afterwards rinse everything off. Go to the next one, so on and so forth. Before I move to the next side, all the way around, I do the exhaust tips as well with the same bucket that we have for the wheels. So I'll do all 4 wheels, rinse all 4 wheels. We don't want to leave any chemicals on there. And then I'll go in, rinse the paint down, take anything off. Like a lot of times the soap itself will grab lots of that junk off because we don't want to scratch anything. But this is a very fast process. Then I'll go back in, foam again, lightly take my wash towels, wash the entire vehicle, then go in and rinse it, and we'll pick it up again from there. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit here because we've all done a wash, so I just don't want to prolong this with respect to, don't spend 3 hours doing this. It's more important to go over the next steps once we start really talking about decontaminating the paint. Okay, now the paint has been quickly washed. You can see it's still wet. This would be the time that we normally go in and do the clay process or the decontamination of the paint again with the clay. And it is a good process, but I do think there's a little extra step that we can do that I would consider the secret sauce, that when we do apply the coating, it gives it that extra pop.
Pen is clean.
Looks clean, right? Now, before we get into the step-by-step process of how to actually clay, I want to take a step back and go over the history of clay, where it came from. Then we're going to hop over to the whiteboard. I'm going to show you this process where we're shearing the paint, right? When we shear the top layer of that contamination off, the roots are still there. And we need to remove the roots as well. Now, normally we go in, we feel, oh yeah, it's very gritty. We clay and we go back and go, oh, it's gone, but is it? And I want to show you on the whiteboard why this next little process that we're going to do after this is what really enhances the coating. Clay was invented in the late 1980s in Japan as part of the paint refinishing process. After the cars were painted, technicians noticed a rough or gritty texture due to the overspray from the other cars getting painted nearby. To remove the overspray, they needed to use really big, heavy rotary polishers of the time and repolish the paint one more time, causing more work and reducing the thickness of the paint in the process. Keep in mind that at the time, large DA polishers just didn't exist. So this was a very time-consuming process, and it just wasn't great for the overall integrity of the paint to do this every single time your paint felt gritty. So a gentleman named Tadao Kadate first tested modeling clay on wet paint to shear the top of that grittiness away without the use of a rotary polisher. After a ton of iterations, he finally filed for a patent on October 9th, 1987, right around when cars were coming out with two-stage or clear coats for paints as the norm in the manufacturing process. So when clay hit the market, it really caught the wave at the perfect time. Why? Because clear coats were out, they're very, very thin. We don't want to rotary polish it every single time because they're super thin. So once this sort of caught on, it just took off. To be crystal clear, Mr. Kodate invented the material for the paint refinishing market. However, detailers in the detailing market made it wildly popular for home use that we see today. But there's a catch. Okay, so I want to make 3 quick points with respect to using clay on your paint. Before I do that, there's a green line, by the way, just represents the surface of the paint, and it's squiggly, meaning there's peaks and valleys, because that's what paint looks like under a microscope. Although it feels flat and looks flat, it's never perfectly flat, again, under a microscope. So we have overspray, sap, and brake dust. Point number 1 is when you're using a clay bar, you are actually shearing the tops of all this contamination off. In other words, if I were to take my towel here and pretend this is a clay bar, I'm coming in and getting the very surface of it, right, the very top of this, but you may leave behind a bunch of the stuff, a bunch of the contamination within the pores of the paint. Number 2, how does it get in there? It gets in there because, as we've seen in a lot of the other videos, the paint heats up, expands and contracts over time. And as it does that, it's getting lower and lower and lower, deeper, more embedded in the paint. So as we're shearing the top of it, although, oh yeah, it actually feels pretty smooth right now, we may not be getting all the, in this case, the brake dust or the sap or the overspray out of all the deep parts of the valleys or the pores of the paint. Now the third point is clay is actually an abrasive. So although you have lubrication, although the paint is wet, you're using soap, you're using all kinds of things to make sure that the surface of the paint is lubricated in between this clay thing that's on top of it. At the end of the day, we can kind of just kick that all to the side and say, you have a very high chance of actually marring or scratching the paint. Depends on how hard and how soft, etc. the paint may be, but don't fool yourself. When you're using a clay bar, you have a very high risk of scratching the paint in the process of shearing off all the contamination that may be trapped in the pores of the paint. So those are 3 important things to keep in mind when you're using clay. Having said all of that, I'm not suggesting you shouldn't use clay. I like to think of it like an emergency room. So if I get injured or whatever, I go straight to the emergency room because it's an emergency, right? I have to use it, but I don't just schedule my emergency room visits for Tuesday. Hey, it's Tuesday, you know what? I'll go to the emergency room. No, you don't do that. You do your regular maintenance and exercise, so on and so forth. So the point I'm making is, if you have an emergency, it is a perfect idea to use a clay bar. Go to the emergency room, but just don't go to the emergency room because it's Tuesday or, hey, I'm doing my maintenance wash, I got a clay. You have to feel to see if these things are in there. Now, and the next thing we're going to talk about is how do we get these little parts out? That's the secret sauce. Now, the next step would be, of course, to clay the paint in the heavily contaminated areas. To do that, it usually comes in a square bar and you cut it off. Now, I've turned this into a bit of a hamburger. You can see that there, a little patty. I don't have one of those bars here because I get them maybe once a year. I don't clay a lot, only in the really bad circumstances because of our next step. But to do that, you're gonna take the towel or the wash mitt that you just had. You're gonna put the soap on. Again, this car was still wet. It was right after I washed it. And I like to get the clay bar a little wet, full of soap. And you're gonna come in with your hands, put your fingers like this, and you're gonna be using friction, back and forth. I can hear a little bit of contamination. Back and forth, medium pressure. You're not really pushing down. And it's not about just crushing the paint right now as if you were scrubbing, let's say, you know, the floor or whatever. You're really just gliding across the surface and you're just shearing off any of those little bits in contamination, and you can feel in 2 seconds it's super smooth. So this has always been highly effective, especially at the before and after aspect, and why it's been so prominent with clear coats and the before and afters of cars. People just love doing this, and I can completely understand it because it does feel good. But to get that extra little step, we are going to have to, once we're finished doing this to the car, again, just to the areas that need it, which is usually the lower rockers, a lot of times the hood and the horizontal surfaces. This is all glass here, so I can just razor blade that. But anything that is horizontal like this, the trunk, and definitely behind the wheels are gonna get a lot of use from clay. Once you're done, rinse everything off, dry the car, and we're gonna move on to the next step. When you're done claying the heavily contaminated areas of the paint, then I move to the wheels. Why? Because we're also going to be coating them as well. Make sure that you're using lubrication. Just spray a little bit or squeeze a little bit of soap on there and you're good to go. Now this one here, I actually changed the clay patty that I had on the paint for the one that I'm using on the wheels right here. I use a little bit of a smaller one, plus this one's seen better days, so it's about to be tossed out. You never want to use clay on the wheels and then reintroduce it to the paint. Why? Because this is very, very heavily contaminated with brake dust, and if you introduce brake dust back onto the paint, you're absolutely going to get into that third point that I made where it's an abrasive and you're going to potentially scratch the paint. That's where a lot of that comes in. So when you're done with the wheels, if they're not too bad, then maybe you can keep one or two, but for the most part, I throw it away. Same thing on the exhaust as well. I'll clay the exhaust pipe. But as you come in here with a little bit of lubrication, you are quickly going to see just how contaminated the wheels are. And the reason is because we mentioned in point 2 before is that there is a lot of expansion and contraction and heating up and cooling down. Wheels are just notorious for that because of obviously the brakes. So if you come in here quickly and do this, you're going to get a much better finished product with respect to coating, because it has something to adhere to now. It's not really fighting the coating. It's not sitting on top of the coating and sort of not gripping better to the surface that it's on, in this case, the wheels. So do this quickly. You're going to see that, yeah, look at that. Like within 2 seconds, this thing is black. And then I'm going to toss it out. So just quickly go through here and you're going to be good to go. Okay. Now I want to show you something really quick. This is a new pad I just took out of the bag. This is the one I took out of the bag about 10 minutes ago after I finished the hood and started working the side of the car here. Can you see the difference? Do you see how this side over here is a little bit more brown, right? The reason why is those are the roots that we just took out that I mentioned before with the whiteboard. It's being sucked up and collected in the foam pad here, used with a little bit of lubrication, in this case the polish, and we're pulling it out. Now if you look at the car, you can see you know, when I shot a little bit of the B-roll before, it's pretty clean. I washed it and then we clayed it, but this is the last little part of the clay. The other question I get a lot is, how come you don't clay a lot and sometimes you just go straight to the pad? The reason sometimes I do that is it doesn't necessarily require me to clay, like I talked about the emergency room, you know, little analogy there, and then I will overload the pad and go through more pads than introduce the clay bar. Why? If I realize that the paint is incredibly soft, that third point that I made, that it isn't abrasive, I will scratch the paint so much so that this won't get it out. Now, if you needed to compound and polish and do it, you can do all of that. That's not the purpose of this particular video. It's just really the mindset of how to prep properly, again, for the coating. But if you needed to compound and polish, feel free to do that. That's not part of this episode. But this here definitely proves that there's roots left in, even though I washed it properly and I clayed it properly, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm gonna continue on with the rest of the paint, but you do need to blow this out because eventually this will become so overwhelmed that I'm not gonna just take it off, although you can, and put this new one on. I'm just gonna blow it out. If I didn't clay, I'd probably have to go to a new pad. Probably halfway through, depending on how much contamination is. So I just thought that was a really cool thing. Look at the difference. That brownness there, those are the roots that we're getting out in preparation for the coating. Once I finished up polishing / cleaning the paint and removing the last little bits of the roots of the contamination in there, the paint is now clean. I usually go in and do a 50-50 isopropyl alcohol wipe down, just remove any oils or any of that stuff. If you feel like you want to wash the car again, totally fine, you can do that. But I like to finish with that iso wipe, dry everything, and now we're ready for the coating application. Okay, now that the prep process has been completed, let's have a little bit of fun and put a coating on. Now, a few things to keep in mind when you're doing the coating. First thing is, as soon as you break the seal, you're gonna hear a little like that. That means the air is coming out, and you have about 3 to 4 hours to put it on. Now, you can put the top back on and use it later, but I like to think that the first 3 to 4 hours, really, it just works well, and it's what it's designed to do. The analogy I like to give is if you have one of those plastic Coke bottles and you open up the screw top and you drink it or whatever, you can put the top back on, put it in the refrigerator and drink it later, but it never seems to have that right taste. That same kind of concept. So try to use it as soon as you open it up. Second thing is, this is designed for one big vehicle, like huge SUV, lots of paint, et cetera, et cetera. That would be one full bottle. So for the most part, cars like this or smaller are going to use about 3/4 of the bottle application. So make sure you're sort of monitoring that as you're putting it down. You do want to put a thick coat down as you're doing that. Speaking of that, to prime the microfiber pad, you do want to put kind of a lot of material in the beginning. Why? Because if there's some dry spots here, as you're applying it and it catches a dry spot, you're going to scoop some of that up and it's going to be a little bit uneven and you might find some high spots and low spots. So just make sure you prime it really well. Lastly, when it comes to a panel, you can apply the full panel. It'll give you enough time. You'll see the rainbow. In this case, this one will rainbow. Some will sweat to indicate that it's time to remove it. But you do want to work one panel at a time, like one quarter, one door, one roof, etc. If you go through and you stop right halfway through, I don't know what it is, but there's always like a little triangle where your arm goes this way and then that way when you're on that side, and the same thing down there. And there's always like this little faint line in between because you're trying to like match it. Just do the whole panel at once, then go in with multiple towels. I usually use 2 to wipe it off. Now, the last thing I want to say is, with respect to wiping it off, I don't like to use the word, oh, then buff it off, because you're not really removing it. You're not taking it off. You're sort of leveling it, and you're going to start to feel the play of it, you know, as you use it. But it's really intuitive. So I go through about 6 to 8 towels per car, because once it will get full, meaning the top layers you kind of scoop off. But for the most part, just mentally think about, okay, I'm just layering this and kind of buffing it in and then letting it cure. Now, as it cures the next 24, 48 hours, you want to avoid lots of water. meaning out in the rain and or washing it as much as you can. And then over that time, it's only going to get slicker and stronger and harder and more longevity. So it's just curing and curing and curing. But you will feel it's pretty slick from, you know, from the get-go. But I would just do the best to leave it alone. If you're working outdoors, try to pull it inside. If you can't, it is what it is. But during that curing phase, you want to try to leave it unmolested as much as possible. So let's work on this. This will probably take me about 40-45 minutes to do the entire car, and then you're going to see that extra 10% pop that we talked about. That's secret sauce because we did all that polish. Do you have to polish? Absolutely not. You can go through this without polishing, but again, we're really trying to push the envelope. This is a customer car and a good one, and we want to make sure he's happy. So let me finish this up and I'll show you the after. Quick side note here, I like to wear a mask. You see me wear that in pretty much all of my videos. I do wear it when I put on a coating. Here's why. I put so many coatings on that I'm just paranoid about everything, and you know, why not be more concerned about safety, et cetera, et cetera. So I can't do that. I can't wear this when I'm talking to you because here, click, it's a huge pain in the butt. So I'm gonna put this on right now and do the rest of the car just for my own sake here. I like to, you know, safety first. Now check this out, I'm behind the camera. I haven't done this yet. Look at the color, the white black that's here, and this is the side that I just did. Of course, the camera wasn't on when I did this whole side because I messed up, but look at the difference in the blackness of this. Look how crazy that is. That's freshly applied. This one isn't. Hopefully it's catching on camera, but this is incredibly white black, and that's really, really black. That's the difference. That's that 10% I'm talking about. So hopefully, once I'm done applying here, it's gonna match this side. Oh my gosh, that looks so good. But yeah, this is what customers come to expect, I think, from, you know, that pro side there. You can see much darker, and this has had, you know, probably 20-30 minutes, 20 minutes or so to cure, and this one I just finished. So the difference is now pretty close, right? And then this one is just a little fresher, so it hasn't quite, you know, even had 20 minutes to cure it all. But the hue is right there. Much more depth and richness to the car. Okay, now that we're finished up with the paint, we're gonna do the same exact process on the wheels. Now that process is pretty much the same, but we are gonna be using a different product. This is Gillet Pro. It has a higher heat resistance for obvious reasons. These wheels get very hot, the brake calipers get very hot. You can put it on the calipers, wheels, and of course exhaust. Same thing, you're gonna use an applicator pad. You are gonna use a different applicator pad than the paint. Same concept as if you were gonna, you know, wash the wheels. You're not gonna wash with the same wash mitt that you would the wheels. We've all talked about cross-contamination, etc. So keep everything relative to the wheel's exhaust and then paint to itself. So separate the two of them. I'm going to apply this here, let it sit for a little bit, wipe it off, and you're going to see when you go into, you know, wash the wheels later on or remove a lot of this heavy brake dust, way easier. I mean, it's significantly different when you put a wheel coating on. But if you can reach the calipers safely, be sure to do that as well. We're going to hop around. This will take me 5-10 minutes, and we're almost done. So I'm coming out and checking everything over, and you, without a doubt, are gonna find a spot, and it's so much better to do it outside. I'm not sure if you can see that. You see that little spot right there? Right there, see it? Let's see. That is what is considered, right there, high spot. So the way we do this is, if I go in and wipe this right now, it's not gonna come off because it's starting to cure. So then we take a damp, meaning I just put a few drops of Reflex on here. You're gonna come in here, kind of soften it up again, right? Then you can go in and gently level it. It'll be a little grippy now because at this point, everything around here is very slick. And now it's gonna come off. It's difficult because I'm holding the camera at the same time, but you get the point. I go like this, the high spot's gone. Hopefully you can see that it's gone right there. It's beautiful. And there's like probably 2 or 3 spots around the rest of the car that have that. I'll show you another one right now. If you walk around, it's very faint, but can you see that there? There's a little line right there. Come in, do this, kind of reactivate it. This is why it's so important to do this now. Again, forgive me, I got one hand on the camera here. I'm gonna go in, and I'm really kind of trying to gently level it, and you'll see it'll pick everything up. Now, if you were to wait multiple days and find it, then you have to go back in and polish it. It's not the end of the world, but you can see now that's gone. Let's see if I can bump the ISO again. It's gone. And there's one other spot that I saw around here. It was a pretty big one, right there. Do you see that one there? Right there. You see that one right there? Oh, can you see it in the right there? So I gotta come in again and do this wipe. And this is very normal. It's kind of like when I say, when I put PPF on cars, there's always gonna be a spot that's not good. That's just the joys of doing PPF. Same concept here. There's gonna be a high spot. That's just life. So we come in, and I'm putting a little bit of pressure here, and I'm kind of doing a shake, but I don't want to shake the camera too much. That's gonna level this thing out. And so those are the 3 spots. Look, gone. If that's the worst that it was, I'm in good shape. But yeah, you're gonna have a couple here and there. There it is. You see that's gone now? So let me go around and show you the car and how good it looks. Gorgeous. That's that extra 10%. What do you got for me? A bag of money?
Oh, and it's clean.
Looks clean, right? You want to see something even crazier inside? A 1914 electric car. You'll never see one of those. Isn't that the craziest thing you ever seen?
Wow.
All original, barn find, the whole thing.
That's going to look beautiful when you finish it.
Tomorrow, hopefully, I'll get probably 80% of it done. I got to do a lot of handwork on there. I got to dust it. It's archaeological detailing because I can't just power wash it.
No.
The paint will come off.
That needs some.
And you can see there's no steering wheel. There's a tiller. Yeah, so if you look inside, there's a stick. See how there's no, isn't that cool? And there's a chair right here. So
wow.
This was designed technically, so forgive me here, this was designed for women. This was a woman's car in 1914 because they didn't like the smell of the gas.
Yes.
They didn't like the steering wheel because they couldn't get their dress over the center console, the steering column rather.
Yeah.
But yeah, all electric, it would go 100 miles at 30 miles an hour. Just crazy. Yeah, very, very rare car. Have a good one. See ya. Got to keep the mail lady happy. Well guys, there you have it. That is the step-by-step process to properly apply a coating to your car, focusing on that prep process. Really want to make sure that the paint and the pores are clean so the coating has something to grip to, so you're going to get a longer life or longevity of the coating itself. And then of course the depth and shine, because we went in and polished it, and you can see this thing is absolutely glowing. So when a customer takes it home, there is that extra 5 or 10% pop because we did those extra steps. Having said that, Do you need to do it? Absolutely not. You can still go through, wash it, put a coating on there, enjoy the process, get some protection. I do recommend doing this once a year. Why? Because we love the look of it. So from my perspective, from my clients, they really want to have that super slick feel. They want to drive through the rain and see the rain go crazy, that kind of thing. So we're talking about that last 2% of folks, and that's why I shot this episode specifically because I did get a lot of questions. So thank you to those folks who sent me a note saying, hey, what is your process? What are you doing to kind of like tweak that? What's the special sauce behind applying this so I can get that extra couple of percentage points? So hopefully that helped. Again, if you have any questions or additional questions about other things, reach out to me, Larry at AMMONYC.com. Thanks for watching. This was super fun. I think Dominic's going to be pumped. I'll talk to you guys.